Hi, I'm Michael Yorba. Welcome to CEO Money. I've got Matt Heinz, President, Heinz Marketing, on the show with me now. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
All right, I want to know how you got started in sales and marketing. I also want to talk to you about developing brand creation strategies and a myriad of other questions. But before we get started, give us some background on Heinz, your company, Heinz Marketing, and how you got started in sales and marketing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So Heinz Marketing started about 10 years ago. We are all about helping B2B companies build predictable pipelines. So developing new leads, managing your pipeline, building a systematic process-driven way of increasing your confidence that you can hit your number every month and every quarter as you grow and as you scale. I've been doing B2B marketing for about 15 years, worked at Microsoft for a while, ran marketing at a couple startups, and then about 10 years ago, decided to give it a shot myself. So it's been a fun run.
Tell us about what kind of deals are you working with? Drill down into that, so because everybody needs this, especially the guys that are on our show.
Well, I find that a lot of companies, even small companies, big companies, end up doing what we think of, or we describe as random acts of marketing. You got an email going out next Tuesday, and you got a trade show you maybe go to next month, and so, pipeline development is lumpy. Right. And there isn't really a systematic way of doing it. So if you hit your number last month or last quarter, that's great. But what degree of confidence do you have that you can hit it again next month, next quarter? And doing that and getting that level of confidence and predictability is about more than just how many emails you're sending next Tuesday. It has to do with how well you understand your buyer, how well sales and marketing have a program that's integrated together, how well you're executing, but then how well you're managing and measuring what's working and what's not. So I think that, and this is, for most of our clients that are doing B2B selling, it's not transactional. It's not we throw up an ad and people buy or people don't. It's longer sales cycle. It's more complex buying committees that are making decisions where there's multiple touch points. And so coordinating an integrated approach across channels, across sales and marketing, across a broader and bigger pipeline, it takes a pretty tightly coordinated effort. But that's what we help people build.
Got it. With the insight from the types of business that you do, with the types of companies that you do, what are you seeing in sales and marketing that you find interesting these days?
Well, we're certainly seeing, a buyer that is getting much busier, much more distracted. We're finding that, simply getting your prospects' attention and keeping that attention is becoming harder and harder. I think we're finding that the size of the buying committee is certainly getting more complex. There's some research that shows that the typical enterprise buyer has about 6.8 people involved in making the purchase decision. Some of them are decision makers, some of them are influencers, some of those are actually negative influencers, people that may have a separate interest in not getting a deal done. And so your ability to manage and sell to those prospects has a big relation to how well you can build consensus and velocity amongst that internal buying committee. So I think the situation and the environment in which we're selling continues to get more complex, but people still need products and solutions to move their business forward.
What are some insights on that note, though? Because it's one thing to make a broad statement about that we need to change these, but give me some like case study points. I don't want to get a long, winded thing, but just a couple of study points that people can take away from the video.
Yeah, so if we had a client that was selling into, so it was an HR software solution, and their primary buyer was a director of HR. But the director of HR does not have purchase authority for the product because it was expensive, so they have to go to the CFO. The CFO does not care about getting on the phone with us, so we had to teach the director of HR how to speak the CFO's language. That happens in a lot of cases. There's a lot of cases where we'll have a buyer that is not a technical buyer, but they're buying a software solution. IT is not involved in the purchase, but IT has a vested interest in understanding what's being purchased by that company that might affect their IT environment. So even though IT is not an active member of the buying committee, even though they're not actively engaged in the discussion, we have to make sure that our buyer, our champion in the sale, is able to go to IT and actually have a qualified conversation about why they should move forward with this.
Got it. Thanks. All right. How should businesses develop a demand creation strategy that sales will love?
Well, I think that, you have to start with a really strong understanding of who your buyer is. And I think that may sound fundamental, but if you look across what a lot of people are saying and what they're selling, you see a lot of very product-centric messages. See a lot of very selfish messages. Your prospect doesn't care about your story until you prove that you care about theirs. And you're not going to get and keep their attention unless you put something in front of them that reflects themselves, that reflects their problems, that educates them and makes them smarter. The way that you get subsequent conversations with prospects, the way you get them into a conversation that's about the product you sell, is by starting with something that is an insight, that is a reframe, that's an educational element, that makes them smarter, that makes them better, that helps in some cases helps them identify a problem and the cost of a problem that they did or didn't know that they have. So your job as a seller is to do more today to educate and identify new trends, to create new information and new insights that helps the prospect understand and qualify and create urgency to have a future conversation. Only 3 to 4% of any given market, according to Gartner research, is actively buying, and even those that are actively buying don't always fully understand the urgency or the specificity of the need or the problem that they're solving.
I get it. All right. How about dashboards? You're talking about measuring the impact and the influence on sales. Bring that out.
Yeah, I think, boy, there's if you think about from a marketing standpoint, a lot of marketing dashboards is a bunch of activity and nonsense. I think you can't buy a beer with a marketing qualified lead, and yet a lot of marketing dashboards show how many lead mailers are sending out, what kind of open rates they get, how many clicks and retweets they get. I think it's important to manage the productivity and the efficiency of marketing and even sales, right? A lot of sales organizations track how many demos did we get, how much dials and talk time did my inside sales team do. But there's a difference between the input of sales and marketing and the output of sales and marketing. So I think you really have to start, especially marketers, need to look at the revenue impact of their work. What did marketing generate and what did marketing influence? And I think if you start first and foremost on the impact and the effort and the production of what marketing and sales generate, you can peel back the onion to see what works and what doesn't.
Okay, all right. And executing a regular cadence of optimization to keep sales pipeline flowing. You mentioned that early in the conversation, but bring that out a little bit better.
I think that ideally there's a foundation of things that you're doing every day, every week to be successful. You're looking for prospects that have a potential need. You're doing your outbound prospecting. You're following up with prospects. But I think on a consistent basis, you're always looking for the next trend or the next message. I think that if you simply stick to what worked in the past, those best practices from days and years gone by become things that everyone else does, and then you kind of lose your edge. There's a sales development methodology that was written up in a very popular book about 15 years ago. 15 years ago, it worked really well. Now everyone's using it, and it's been 15 years, and so it doesn't work as well. So I think you have to constantly test and try new things. Every market is different. Just because you read something in a book that worked for one company doesn't mean it's going to work in your environment, in your culture, in your industry. So I think it's important to test, to measure, and to continue to optimize on a regular basis.
I agree, 100%. Last, before we part, your hobby farm, tell me about that.
It's small. It's less than an acre, but we have 9 chickens. We have rabbits. We have a huge pumpkin patch. We grow a lot of fruits and vegetables. My wife's got a whole orchard of fruit trees. It's fun. My wife likes to dig in the dirt, and I'm the infrastructure guy. So when she needs a new chicken coop or needs some new planter boxes, I take care of that. But we have 3 young kids that have their chores, feeding rabbits, feeding chickens, pulling produce, and it's been a lot of fun.
Okay, I'm sure it is. All right, Matt, thanks for being a guest on today's show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You've been watching CEO Money with Michael Yorba. Don't forget, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.